ヤニさん、回顧録の序文の中で、日本とギリシャは全く違うと述べておられますが、今回の石橋賞の発言をどのように捉えておられるでしょうか。ぜひ日本の視聴者に、お話しいただきたいと思います。
There are two possible interpretations. One is a very kind one that your prime minister simply does not understand the economy. As you said, this is the kind interpretation. The second interpretation, which is the most realistic one, and the one I believe, is that every prime minister in any country who wants to embark on a class war against the majority of his people starts by comparing their country with Greece.
日本の首相のこの発言に対して、世界中でもやはりギリシャと日本を比較している、ギリシャと自分の国を比較するものだというふうに、おっしゃいましたけれども、やはりそれはギリシャが非常に経済的に、金融危機の時に破綻寸前だったからだと思いますけれども、それはヨーロッパ各国でも同じ状況なんでしょうか。
Well, let me explain what I said so far in three steps. The first step is why is Japan utterly different to Greece? This is the first step. And let me explain why. Japan is a country that has a massive trade surplus, balance of payment surplus. So as a nation, you are bringing more foreign currency in than you're spending. Number one. Number two, your high debt is to yourselves. That is, the state owes the vast majority of its debt to its own people, to pension funds, to individual savers, and so on. Neither of these conditions apply to the case of Greece. Firstly, for decades, including today, we had a current account deficit. So both the private and the public sectors were, purchasing goods and services from abroad that were much more expensive than what we were selling. Number one. And number two, we had foreign debt. In other words, we owed the bulk of our public debt. We owed it to foreigners. And here's the clincher, why it is outrageous and unacceptable for your prime minister to compare Japan with Greece. We didn't issue our own currency. We owed money in a currency we could not print, unlike you. So it is clear that unless your prime minister is a complete idiot, which I don't believe he is, he's lying, completely, totally lying, when he makes a comparison between Japan and Greece. And after Akemi does me the favor of translating this, I will explain why they lie in this particular.
今のポイントは、通貨主権ですね。マネタリーソブリニティ。通貨主権を持っている日本とユーロに入ってしまって、通貨主権を失ったギリシャ、そこが多分一番違うとおっしゃったんだと思います。つまりユーロはギリシャにとって自国通貨ではないということだと思うんですが、そこが一番違うというところだと思うんですが、だとすると、私どもちょっと関心がありますのは、ドイツのいわばユーロに加盟したことによって通貨主権を失ってしまってですね、ドイツもいわば地方自治体のようになっていませんかというふうな点なんですね。ですから、ドイツの財政状況ってすごく健全だって言われているんですけれども、実際のところはドイツでさえも日本よりも状況が悪いっていう理解も成り立つように思うんです。実は日本、左派であれ、学者であれ、ドイツがすごく健全で、ドイツのように健全財政をすべきだっていうふうに考えている人が、とても多いので、そのあたりのお考えも聞かせていただけますでしょうか。
Well, you really don't want to copy Germany. Germany is failing. Germany is deindustrializing. It is becoming a failed totalitarian state. Why would Japan? I mean, every country has problems. You have problems, but you have nothing like Germany's problems, and certainly nothing like Greece's problems. So, Shunshun, let me say that, yes, a fundamental difference between Greece and Japan is that we have lost our monetary sovereignty. But it's not the only one. the other major difference, as I said before, is that we have a permanent deficit in our international trade and capital flows, unlike Japan. Secondly, and this is something that Germany shares as well, a lot of our debt is not owned by our own citizens and our own institutions. Germany has the same problem. Increasingly, the Bunds, the German public debt, is owned by foreign institutions. This, essentially, you are privileged compared to both Germany and Greece. You are far more privileged. Allow me to make the point as to why are they lying about this comparison between Greece and Japan? The reason is because those who are in power in Tokyo, they are very interested in one thing. And the one thing they're very interested in is how to shift income from the majority of the lower classes, the working class, the middle class, to the richer. That's what they are interested in. And they know that a policy of austerity will do that. You mentioned consumption taxes. So whenever you increase consumption taxes and you reduce income taxes, income shifts from the poor to the rich. They want to cut down on expenditure on public health, on public education. Why? Because the rich don't want to pay for the poor to be cured in hospitals, and they don't want to pay for poor kids to go to university. So I mentioned at the beginning, it's a class war. And whenever you hear them say, oh, we need to be conservative when it comes to fiscal policy, we need to consolidate our fiscal situation, we need to balance the books. No, you don't need to balance the books. Because if you balance, if the state balances its books, if the state eliminates its budget deficit, then the people are going to have a budget deficit. Somebody has to have a budget. You understand that very well. Not everyone can have a surplus. When Japan as a whole has a trade surplus with the rest of the world, if the government also has a trade surplus or balances its books, then the people of Japan are going to have a deficit. And it's not, of course, the rich who will have the deficit. It is the 60% of the population. This is why this is not just an idle conversation about economics. This is about the future of your country. And the future of your country demands action from you, and I'm very glad that you're doing this in the political sphere, to stop the political agents of the ultra-rich to turn the majority of the people of Japan into sufferers of large deficits.
通貨主権を持っている日本とユーロに加盟してそれを失ったギリシャというのは本当に大きく違うというのは今までのところで非常によく分かったんですけれども、それではですね、日本の緊縮派はですね、しばしですね、ギリシャ以外にイギリスのトラス政権の時のいわゆるトラスショックをしばしば引き合いに出します。あれは何が問題の原因だったとお考えでしょうか？中央銀行の独立性などとこれは関係がありますでしょうか？
No. Again, making a comparison between Japan and the United Kingdom is just as idiotic as making a comparison between Greece and Japan. Now, Britain is in a better state than Greece because they have retained, as Sung Jung said before, their monetary independence. They have their own currency, they have the British pound. And they do borrow in British pounds. However, the United Kingdom, unlike Japan, has a major current account deficit. Year in, year out, they are, spending more dollars abroad to buy goods and services than they earn, which means that their currency is constantly under pressure, something that Japan doesn't have a problem with. Again, anybody in Japan, any politician in Japan who tries to scare you with the thought that you are going to have a Liz Truss moment is either a fool or a liar. And you have to make up your mind. Are you being lied to by a fool, or are you being lied to by somebody who's very skillful at spreading fear in the Japanese public in order to institute this violent transfer of income and wealth from the poor to the rich. Allow me to make one point about Britain.
Yeah.
From 1979 onwards, under Margaret Thatcher's government, the United Kingdom imposed serious austerity for the British people. And they essentially destroyed, vandalized their industry. So within 3 years, closed down all the major industries, car manufacture, steel production, the mines. They just shut everything down, right? And they moved towards services, which meant that they were not exporting anything really in terms of manufactured goods. And this is why they're in the situation they are. Now, any politician in Japan who uses either Greece or Britain as an example by which to scare the Japanese into accepting austerity is going to repeat the crime against the economy that Margaret Thatcher perpetuated. Because if you introduce austerity now in Japan, with Donald Trump depressing your exports to the United States, essentially, Japanese industry is going to divest to negative investment. It's going to shut down factories. Okay? And you will become like Britain. Then you will have a Liz Truss moment. And so what is the solution? The solution is to increase the incomes of the lower classes in Japan so they can purchase the industrial goods which are now being sent over to the United States. So it's exactly the opposite of austerity, that which Japan needs.
トランプ大統領の、ちょっとね、話題が出ましたので聞いてみたいんですけれども、今のトランプ政権の様々な動きについて、ヤニスさんはどういうふうに見ていますでしょうか？あれは非常に辛抱遠慮があってやっているという方と、実は有名な経済学者の皆さん、例えばブランシャールなども含めてですね、あれはむちゃくちゃやってるだけだという評価もありますが、どういうふうに見ていますか？
Trump's economic team begins with what I think is an interesting and more or less correct analysis of the global economy, and then proceeds to a solution which is probably worse than the problem. So good analysis, bad practice. The good part of the analysis concerns the fact that, as some of us have been saying now for decades, we live in a very strange global economy where Japan's, China's, and Germany's net exports are maintained by America's trade deficit, so that Japan's, China's, and Germany's savings from selling to the United States migrate to New York to fund the American government deficit, the trade deficit, and real estate, as well as Wall Street. This is the definition of an unbalanced world, of a world in a wild imbalance. So, they say that, and they say that that needs to change. I agree with that. I've been saying this now for at least 30 years. But the way they're trying to do it, they're trying to do it in a tyrannical and dictatorial way through threatening everyone with gigantic tariffs, effectively an embargo, and then coming to deals with each country separately. Now, maybe the Japanese government, because they are vassals of the United States, whatever the United States tells them to do, they will do. And that's terrible for the Japanese people. Maybe they will do what they are told, but the Chinese will not do as they are told. And many other people around the world will not do as they are told. So in the end, I think that the Trump plan is not going to work, even though its analysis is sound. So the question is, what does the Japanese government do? What should we do in Europe? What should China do? That's a very big question.
日本はですね、石破首相なんかが日本の財政はギリシャより悪いというような時の根拠はですね、政府債務残高対 GDP 比を出してくるんですね。で、これで比較することについて、どのようにお考えでしょうか。日本はですね、実は主要国の中でも物価上昇率非常に低い。金利も低いんですね。で、先ほどヤニスさんが言ったように、外国に対する債務も非常に少ないわけです。で、それなのに債務対 GDP という指標を持ってきて、日本の財政は危機的であると繰り返し財務省、与党が説明するわけですけれども、これについてぜひビシッとコメントをお願いします。
For your country, the debt to GDP ratio is irrelevant. It's a number you shouldn't even look at. It doesn't matter what it is. And I have explained why. It's like, let me give you a very simple example. It's like my right pocket in my trousers owing, a big sum of money to the left pocket in my trousers. Yeah, that's not an issue. I just take the money from the left pocket and put it in the right pocket. If I owe a much smaller percentage to a foreigner, then it is a problem because I cannot convince the foreigner. The foreigner has power over me. And, ask yourselves, if the Japan fiscal situation is so bad, why is it that the rest of the world is dying, absolutely dying, to lend to the Japanese government at an interest rate which is one fourth of what, they ask in order to lend the American government? The answer is because anyone who knows anything about economics knows that the public debt of Japan is irrelevant. Because, as I said, it's like the right pocket owing money to the left pocket. So the fact that they are making all this noise and try to scare you into thinking, oh my God, we are great. You should see this as a clear and absolutely obvious attempt to frustrate and to scare the Japanese people into transferring gigantic amount of money from the middle class and the working class to the rich.
この本持ってる方は83ページに載ってるんですけれども、不況が政治の中間層を崩壊させてナチズムが出てくるというのは歴史上よくあることだと書かれています。で、世界恐慌の時のヒットラーがまさにそうですし、日本でも小恐慌の中で青年将校によるテロが何度か起こりました。ギリシャ危機の場合は黄金の夜明けというものがありました。トランプの再選や近年の欧州での右翼の台頭も間違った経済政策と関係があると思いますか?
Absolutely. It was austerity that did it. It was a combination of austerity, that is taking income away from the majority, and of what is called quantitative easing, of money printing by the central bank, which is what Japan has been doing as well. But it's a combination of austerity for the many and money printing for the very few. When you put those two together, you have an explosive mix. What happens is the very, very, very rich, because the central bank prints money for them, they buy all the property. So house prices go up, rents go up, and the few have to suffer austerity, so their incomes shrink, so they can't survive. And they get angry. And when the mass of people are getting angry, some skillful, ultra-rightist, racist, xenophobic, fascist politician can easily harvest this discontent, this anger, and you have the mid-war, both in Europe and in Japan. And we have it again. I don't know what's happening in Japan in this regard. I hope you don't have fascists rising up, but if you don't, you will. In Europe, we have the Alternative for Deutschland in Germany, we have Le Pen in France, we have Wilders in government in Holland, we have the rise of the fascists in Spain, in Portugal with Chega, here in Greece, we defeated Golden Dawn, but now there are 3 or 4 different little hatchlings that have come out, and they're in parliament. So, yeah, austerity and for the many and money printing for the few is the greatest gift to fascism.
すべての人々へのマネープリンティングっていうんですか、まあ、ベーシックインカム的なものに関しては、ヤニスさんはどうお考えになりますか？
I'm totally in favor, but I think it shouldn't just be printing money. I think we need something more radical and more rational than that. I call it a monetary commons. And let me give you an example. Suppose that instead of simply printing money, the Bank of Japan were to allow you, Japanese people, with your phone, to download from the App Store, whether it's Android or Apple, doesn't matter, to download a Bank of Japan wallet. And suppose you could say to your employer, put my salary in there, not in my bank account. And suppose the Bank of Japan were to give you an interest rate equal to what it gives commercial banks, the official interest rate, which is always larger than what the commercial bank will give you. And also the capacity to pay anyone within Japan or even outside using that app for free, no charges. Now, that is a monetary commons because this belongs to the state. It's an alternative payment system. You escape the commercial banking system. And think about it. If you take money out of your commercial bank account and you put them in your Bank of Japan bank account, right? That reduces the money supply in the private sector by a factor of 7, 8, 9, 10, because that means that the private bank cannot multiply it the way it does. Which means that now that the money supply has come down, the Bank of Japan can credit every Bank of Japan citizen wallet with a certain amount of money every month. And that's a basic income for everyone. And you don't have inflation because the overall quantity of money has been maintained the same. So it's not just a matter of printing money to give to the poor. It's a matter of creating a new monetary commons and allowing the construction of that monetary commons to pay for a basic income. Now that would be a revolution.
ヤニスさんのどれか他の本で詳しく説明されていると思うんですけど、どの本のどのあたりで書いてましたっけ？
In Another Now, my political science fiction novel.
いえいえ。
OK。
2019年の欧州議会選挙でグリーンニューディールを、中心的な政策として掲げてね、戦っておられましたが、私たち令和新選組も公約の柱の一つに反緊縮グリーンニューディールを掲げています。で、今トランプ大統領が、また、気候変動は、ないとか言って、非常にですね、気候変動対策も、ちょっと危機的な状況ではありますが、こういう時だからこそグリーンニューディールが非常に重要だと私は考えていますけれども、どうでしょうか。積極財政の使い方として、このグリーンニューディールが最も重要なのではないかと思いますが、いかがでしょうか。
Well, I very much fear that we cannot move it forward in the United States because, let's face it, Trump doesn't want it. He believes that the climate calamity is a hoax. And in Europe, in 2019, we lost in the elections. We didn't succeed in implementing the Green New Deal. Instead, we had the Green Deal by the President of the European Commission, which was a complete and utter fake. It was not green and it wasn't a deal. And now it's been ditched. And now it's been replaced in Europe with rearmament. Absolutely mad. So I'll be very frank with you. My only hope is China and Japan. They are the only two countries which I can see willing and able, or at least able, to implement the Green New Deal. Somewhere. We have to start somewhere. If we start in Japan, great. If we start in China, the Chinese are interested. They seem to be doing it. India is a different kind of case. India is full of possibility, but at the same time, it is shifting very radically to an ultra-right, nationalist, xenophobic position. And I wish that I could say that I'm hopeful about India, but I'm not. But in your country and in China, in association with South Korea, with other Southeast Asian countries, it is possible to start the process of a Green New Deal.
私たちは、令和新選組はですね、消費税を廃止して、今まで下から上に富のね、吸い上げが行われていた。でも、それを逆にしようということで非常に強く訴えています。これについて、どのように思われますでしょうか？
I have been following your party and I am fully in support of your program. I think it's what Japan needs. I think it's what the broader region needs. I think it's what the world needs from Japan, because Trump is right in one sense. You cannot continue to have these large trade surpluses. You need to absorb what the Japanese people produce within Japan, but that means you need to increase demand. And you cannot increase demand by giving more money to people who already have a lot, because they will not be able to, how much more can they purchase? So you need to increase the incomes of the poorer Japanese in order to rebalance the Japanese economy, in order to make Japan less reliant on the trade deficit of the United States. That's in your national interest. So I'm fully in support of your party. So we go.
Thank you very much, Yanis-san.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Rico. Also, thanks to you. Akemi-san, thank you so much for being my Japanese voice. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I'm not an economist. I follow your videos all the time, but
Thank you so much. See you.
Thank you.
See you
Thank you so
soon.
much.
Thank you very
写真を、please.
写真、
Please
はい。
wait.
あ、写真ね。フォトタイム
Photo, please.
Photo time.
Yes.
はい、そうですね。
フォトグラフ。
はい。はい。
Okay, okay. Thank you.
はい、OK。Thank you very much, Yanis-san.
Thank you.
Bye.